Hello, I'm Dr. Katherine Horton, and with me today is Wednesday Kennedy. She's giving an update about the situation with her mother, and also we wanted to talk today about MK Ultra and how it all ties in with the abuse that people suffer, sometimes their entire life, but sometimes even generationally. So what we're going to do today, I have to say, we were sabotaged into oblivion. We couldn't actually hear each other on Hangouts. We tried Skype and there was other sabotage. So today's episode must be top bombshell because Intel threw all their little GCHQ and NSA minions at us to sabotage the call. So what we have to do now, I'm not sure how this is going to pan out. I'm going to record my end on audio and she's going to speak. I can hear her fine, so I'm hoping that YouTube records her voice. If YouTube doesn't record my voice, I will splice it in later. This is why we're not broadcasting live, but we'll go live later. And then also, the problem is that I can hear Wednesday, but she can't hear me. So what I will do is I will say my questions and replies to her, and I will type them as fast as I can at the same time. So you will probably hear typing sounds. And then eventually I will, she will read what I'm saying and she will respond to that. But because of all the sabotage, today will be a rather stand-up comedy sort of episode. So, but this is about very, very serious topics. It's about the kidnap of her mother, who has been incarcerated in a care home that is a total misnomer and seems to be more a Nazi extermination camp, really, an internment camp. And her mother had care home before, and Wednesday was looking after her and her father. Now they are separated. Her father's in hospital. Her mother has been put into a care home, and she's desperately trying to get them back out again. So this is an ongoing case, and it's also symptomatic for the this sort of abuse, elder abuse, that is pretty much identical to the abuse of children in the care homes. So I will pass it on to Wednesday. We were fighting so hard. She got herself a cigarette to calm down. So today will be, her telling us about what has happened and, also having a smoke to calm her nerves, which I think is a good thing. And I will do my best on my end to try to get the audio to work. So let's see how it pans out. But the bottom line is we are talking about very, very important things. Everything that she's reporting from Sydney is exactly mirrored in other countries, in Britain, in Germany, Switzerland, and the US, and all over the world. This is the so-called New World Order, which is pretty much the rule of crime everywhere, where people are just being asset stripped, people are being abused and tortured, and the entire idea is to make organized crime as much money as possible. They use children homes, care homes, hospitals, absolutely everything you can think of. So today's episode will be super important, and at this point I'm going to send her the keyword, which is over to you, and I'm going to type it and I'm going to send it. So
over to you. Wow. I mean, lucky I did theatre of the deaf. I didn't understand anything you just said. We have no sound. You told them that, didn't you? Oh my God, but I love you. I feel your empathy. And you know what? I've just been so connected to you and what's been happening with you, and I always find it amazing that you're able to I'm sort of doing the same thing, but I think you do it with a lot more pizzazz, suffer what you suffer and then get on air and, not only talk about what's happening to you, but help a lot of people, So I want to tell you that over here in Australia, we love you and you're our Swiss connection, and we're going to take these bastards to the International Criminal Court in The Hague, right? Yes. Amen. We will. Because honestly, Australia is just it's like the Petri dish of the New World Order. It's really where they test out what they're then going to, do to the rest of the world. And I really noticed that before September 11th, because we had the Olympics and so a lot of, their policing and they did here first. And then I went over to live in New York, of course, and I got there just in time for September 11th. You know, my timing's always perfect. And I saw the same operation being carried out in New York, you know, and I really, you know, it's interesting for me because I haven't even talked with you about my book. I wish I had it on hand, but 21st Century Showgirl, because it's basically a stream of consciousness book, and I just wrote what was happening, you know, at the time. And then when I went to try to launch it in 2010, it was just amazing the amount of people that came out that first tried to stop me writing the book, and then tried to stop me launching the book. And, you know, I didn't get it. I just wanted to tell my story. You know, I wasn't jobbing anyone else in. I mean, I changed all the names, you know, they'd all been given nom de plumes, you know, Mr. Sparkle, Mr. Manhattan, you know, they all had, I just wanted to tell my story, but people just came out of the woodwork to stop the publishing of that book, to come in and sabotage every one of my book launches. And now I sort of know why, because unwittingly, I was exposing operations. I was exposing people. I was exposing the network. I had no clue what I was doing, you know. I'm more wacky leaks than WikiLeaks, you know. Like I was still very much, I think, a sort of mind-controlled doll at that stage, you know. But only half cooked. I think I had a lot of my mother in me. I think I had a lot of Gwenny in me, right? And I think that's why they've stuck Gwenny in that internment camp. You know, I think something happens to people when they get old and the veils fall off and they see the truth. It's like getting ready for heaven. You know, they see the truth exactly as it is. And especially if, you know, you get diagnosed with something like Alzheimer's. I don't even know what that diagnosis means, quite frankly. But, you know, it just seems to be you just start telling the truth and people freak out and just want you locked away as quickly as possible. So, and it was really funny because Mum went through a real truth-telling stage, you know, about 5 years ago, and she was getting off on it. Like, I remember her saying, whoa, I should have told so much truth years ago. It feels great. But she was freaking a lot of people out. You know, so, you know, I think it's the Gwenny in me. It's my mother in me that saved me. They couldn't fully cook me because my mother had installed in me such a strong conscience, and they could only half wipe it. And I think the other reason why I was only half cooked, whereas my siblings are fully cooked, is because it's a spiritual quest, basically. And, you know, and they couldn't hold me in one area, you know. They sort of cook me in acting, but I'd sort of work it out and okay, I'm going to write my own scripts. And then, so I started doing my own writing, but, you know, they follow you everywhere. There is actually not an area of the arts that's not controlled by this cabal. You know, intelligence runs the arts worldwide, and that's it, you know. So, you know, I'm a late bloomer, and I didn't work out really what was happening until they were getting ready to throw my parents away. And then, you know, on one level, I did know what was happening because I was preparing myself. I think that's when I met you online, 2013, and I was making my videos, sort of trying to, and, you know, I had my own little sort of secret YouTube site, and I was just trying to work out, going back over my life and trying to work out what happened to me, you know, when did this start? And, you know, and I was going back over my old work and my old reviews and deconstructing it. And I came up with a lot of, well, you know, that's how we connected. And then, of course, you know, we disconnected for a couple of years because then my siblings was bringing up to put my parents into the nursing home. Now, the nursing home is an internment camp, and it's not just an internment camp for my parents, it's an internment camp for me, okay? And I am absolutely sure that there is intelligence money in the Holy Spirit nursing home, that the Catholics are working with the shadow government, are working with the Nazis. They're absolutely working together. I know that because, well, you know, not only the way that when I did those 4 tribunals, those 4 NCAT tribunals, that the government just ignored everything I told them. They ignored the fact that I told them that my mother had been kidnapped, that she'd, you know, overnight with 2 hours notice, she'd been force evicted and then force admitted, and what had happened in the nursing home, the way that she'd been abused, the way that they had set her up to put her in the dementia ward. Because you see, only in the dementia ward can they do what they're doing to her, right? And this is the thing about psych wards and dementia wards. You know, it's their own world with their own rules. Only in the dementia ward could they forbid her from leaving the premises. My mother loves walking. You know, she loves walking. She's social. She loves meeting babies. She loves meeting people. We were going to church 3 times a week. Church is my mum's drugs. Like, you know, and you know, it's not only it fills her up on a spirit level, but it's her neighborhood. It's where she used to go with her grandma. So she recognizes the architecture and my mother's memories in her feet, in her walking and catching the bus. My mother is thrilled by catching buses, thrilled by walking the streets. Well, of course, once the tribunal had just, you know, ignored, they didn't even want to see the video of my mother's words from my mother's mouth. They didn't want to see any of the evidence of what my mother wanted for her own life. They totally ignored all of that. We don't watch videos. Oh, really? And so I mean, that tribunal was like a secret court. And, you know, I'm writing to Malcolm Turnbull, the Prime Minister of Australia at the moment. I'm in the middle of writing him. It's a very hard letter to write because I'm asking him to upturn. He is the only one with the power to just upturn that tribunal and to say, send Gwenny home, you know. Otherwise, I will go through the High Court, the Supreme Court, and then the High Court. And from everything that I've heard from other lawyers, from people who have been through that experience, I'm going to, you know, it's going to be a total waste of time, and Mum's going to be dead by the time that it's finished. So I'm really relying on Malcolm Turnbull at the moment. Anyway, I haven't finished the letter. It's a really hard letter to write. But basically, we came back after that tribunal to what they call a control order. Now, that control order was decided by Catholic Healthcare in collaboration with the 2 siblings who had evicted Mum into the nursing home, and Trisha's husband, who I actually feel has been a part of, you know, basically bringing down our family since he shotgun married into it. And that control order basically meant Mum couldn't walk anymore. She hasn't left those grounds, right? She's not allowed to go to church. It's a Catholic care home, and then allowing her to go to her local church, which was her habit, 3 times a week. I had to stay in there with her. We weren't allowed to go even into the compound. Now I realise this was from a series of meetings that my sister Patricia Pugliese, along with Maria Hammond, Ramila Pockerell, Julie Knox, who else was involved? Nurse Anna, Dr. Hislop, all these people are involved in this. Well, maybe Dr. Hislop wasn't involved in the control order, but she's certainly involved in the drugging that came later. She's part of the scene. And they basically made up, they wrote down minutes of their meetings where they'd all worked out ways to not only punish Mum, but punish me, keep me away from my father, police me with my father on the ground, so to get the staff to police me, not allow Mum to see Dad with me. Now, you got to remember, I was a 2-year carer. I was looking after Ma and Pa in their beautiful 5-star home care for 2 years. So, but that was the plan. And that was always the plan, to separate me from my mother and father. So it's not only a punishment of my mother and father, it's also a punishment of me. And the more that time goes by, and just see the brazenness of the way that they're behaving, that, you know, that this is just the way it is, and that we all have to sort of deal with it, and nothing's going to change, and everybody's in on it, and you just start to think, oh my God, what is happening here? Like, how do they have this much power? Like, I'll give you an example, right? They have not let me see my mother for they've not let me see my mother for Christmas, New Year, my father's birthday, my mother's birthday, their 60th wedding anniversary, my birthday, and now we're coming up to Easter. But, you know, they like to give a little crumb, you know, and it's all part of the torture. Negotiating when I can see my mother. Now, what is going on here? My mother's not in jail. I'm not in jail, am I? I think I am. I think she is. But how did we end up in jail? Because that's supposed to be a care facility, right? There's supposed to be a choice about whether you want to go into a care facility or you don't want to go into a care facility. And there's obviously no choice. And there's obviously no choice. And I should be able to see my mother. I mean, if they've got a 1.4 million bond from my parents, plus what they're charging them weekly, they're fleecing my parents. They're charging them for things that I gave for free, you know, and Mum's probably not even getting what I gave to her. And anyway, what they give to her, it's not my hands. It's not my mother's daughter's hand and my father's daughter's hands, who used to massage them, and facials, and you know, my voice, you know, like nobody can replace me. I'm my mother's daughter, right? But they're now charging what I gave for free. I'm not allowed in. Somehow now I'm the criminal. I'm being criminalized. And listen to this, check this out. They're just unreal. Okay, so they write this to, I've got this incredible advocate, Mr. Tony Joseph. Like, you know, I'll talk about him later because he is a legend. Like, oh my God, he's just an angel. Like, it's just incredible what he has, you know, how he's hung in there through all of this suffering to, you know, help me get my mother back home, which is what I want and what she wants. And then I want to get my father back home, thanks very much. I want them under the roof of their own home. You know, I gave a 5-star home care. They give a crap, communist, abusive home care. And I think they are doing experimentation on my mother. I absolutely do. But anyway, listen to this. Dear Mr. Joseph, we are writing to you as the advocate of Miss Wednesday Kennedy. If, however, you are no longer the advocate. Oh, is this the last one of the... hang on. Oh, no, that's the other one. Hold on. I'll find you the latest one. Because, you know, these letters are all the same, really. They just send the same letter. Oh, here we go. Here we go. So this is, I'm allowed 2 hours at Easter. Woo! You know, on a day that they decide. And these are the conditions, okay? And I'd love to hear your feedback on this, even if I can't hear it. I'd love to hear it. I'll listen later. Okay. So they've actually, Oh, they've actually sent this to me. Dear Miss Kennedy, invitation to have lunch on Thursday, 29th of March, 2018 with Mrs. Gwen Kennedy, my mother. We are writing to inquire if you would like to have lunch with Mrs. Kennedy at Holy Spirit Croydon on Thursday, 29th of March 2018 between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. Oh, how generous. While we are aware that you continue to post videos that are untrue and defame this organisation and our staff members, nevertheless, we consider that a mother and a daughter should have the opportunity to see each other at Easter. How kind. I mean, do you believe this? With all the money they're fleecing from my parents? Should you wish to take up this offer, you will need to advise Ramila Pockerell, hideous creature, by close of business, Tuesday, 27th of March, 2018, so that arrangements for your lunch can be made. Note that the following conditions apply. Now, let me just say that they don't want me to advise Ramila by close of business Tuesday, so that the arrangements for lunch can be made. It's not my lunch they want to arrange. It's that big Israeli security guard that they want to have on hand if I'm 5 minutes over, who'll stand there and intimidate me. This is all a trap. It's all a part of my traumatization, right? Making sure that I know that I have no rights to my mother, no rights to see my mother, no rights to photograph my mother, no rights to even be in there. Well, get her out of there, okay? You know, this is just unreal. Okay. Should you wish to take up this, okay, we've got it. Okay. Note that the following conditions apply. When arriving at Holy Spirit, you are to use the intercom to introduce yourself to reception in order to gain access to the home. So no, it's just slipping in, hi, Mum. No, you know. So it's all trauma. Okay, it's all having to bow down to these fucking Nazis, these criminals, right? You are not to bring camera or recording equipment into Holy Spirit. Now, you know what? I've been a videographer my whole adult life. I started, you know, doing people's stories on camera when I was 22 on Simon Townsend's Wonderworld. That was my beginning. That's a national children's TV show. I then went on in, you know, I didn't like stardom much. I then went on in my own, you know, community way to tell people stories and to give people a voice. And the camera is, you know, it's part of me. It's part of what I do. It's part of who I am. And now they are not allowing me to bring the camera in, to tell the story of my mother, to have conversations with her, to capture my mother, right? My mother's at the end of her life. She's 86. Like, how dare they? And why are they doing this? Because they don't want me to capture my mother's deterioration. That's why. But I think it's also more than that, because I think there is intelligence behind all of this. And it's about punishing me. You're not allowed to tell your stories anymore. You don't have a voice in this culture anymore. You're not even allowed to tell your mother's stories, right? So it's really sick. It's really sick and it's really twisted. You are not to bring cameras or recording equipment into the Holy Spirit. You are requested to bring minimal belongings with you. Can you believe this? Anything that you do bring with you will need to be left at reception. And while we will take care of your belongings, we will not take responsibility for these. Like, fuck off. While at Holy Spirit, you are to comply with the Visitor's Code of Conduct, a copy which is attached, and to follow all directions of staff. You are only to visit Mrs. Kennedy in the dining room or courtyard of Dominic House. A staff member may be in attendance nearby. So we're always under surveillance. I don't have any private time with my mother. She can't tell me what's actually happening to her. And this is what happened last time. The only time that my mother could tell me what's happening to her, I'd take her in and I'd do the toilet with her. And she'd start to tell me what was happening. They have my mother in a prison. The Prime Minister of Australia has to get her out of there. Like, this is serious. And of course they let the others in because the others sold her off, because the others belong in jail. But anyway, you are only to visit Mrs. Kennedy in the dining room or courtyard of Dominic House. A staff member may be in attendance. You will leave promptly at 1 p.m. This offer is personal to you. Does that not make you sick to the very bone? These Nazis? I mean, well, of course I'm not going to go because, you know, it's some sort of trap. And who knows, my brother will be there, because when I've sent friends in, they've had my brother, you know, my mercenary brother, who's definitely working with intelligence. He was over in Germany for years. He came back with a paramilitary skill set. He's never really had a relationship. So he's part of a brotherhood, right? You know, my mother was great to him. She was beautiful to him. She really tried to make up for the fact that he was adopted. And in a way, she sort of probably spoiled him. She gave him a sense of entitlement that he doesn't deserve. And he didn't appreciate it. I could see by the will that she left that they changed, that she'd loaned him $100,000 that he hadn't paid back while she was in her 80s. And he's just not a very nice guy. And he's working in with Catholic Healthcare. They wrote him reference for the tribunal. They conspire with him, and now they've got him in as a bodyguard, so I can't get in to see my parents. And I was the carer for my parents for 2 years. And, you know, I'm the biological daughter, and I'm the one that loves them and wants to give them what they want. Since my parents have been in there, both Trish and Paul have withheld the purse. So Mum hasn't had any of her personal things. And Mum had rituals, like beauty rituals, and, you know, she loves pretty things and she loves going out. You know, she'd save that money so she could have a lovely time now, that she'd been safe in her dotage. And he has deprived her of all of that. And not only that, like, it's pretty creepy. Like, you know, with the Monarch Programming, how the, like, animal print, you know, leopard print is sort of part of it. It's like a signifier. And it was very interesting for me, because when I sort of started waking up out of mine, I just, like, threw away all of my, you know, all of my leopard print, my red shoes, my, like, oh my God, you know, like, I could just, because, you know, it's funny, even when Bob Holman came to try to take me down in 2013, you could just see, even though I had done a lot of work on myself, but I wasn't, you know, I didn't understand what was holding me, right? But I knew certain things about myself. Like, I knew I wasn't in charge of my sex, right? I knew I had no judgment, and I knew that I could, you know, it's hard to describe, but it's almost like you are programmed only to be attracted to people that they send in, that then have the right triggers for you. So when you're programmed like that, you know, a really lovely man, you know, could come along and you would not be attracted to him. You would not be open to him at all, because you're not programmed to be open to him. So that's also that's also part of the eugenics. It's you know, there was only one boyfriend that they sent me that they were going to allow me to breed with, and I knew that he was, I don't know, I just couldn't imagine a future with him, you know. And yeah, you know, that's a whole other story. I'll talk about that another time. But I said no to that. And the funny thing is, I was so tuned into this. I remember her saying to me at the time, this could be your last chance. And I'm like, Mum, I'm only 28. What do you mean my last chance? But she was right, it was. Because when I said no to him, and the last time I saw him, right, Simon Marnie, the last time I saw him, he said to me, and it was almost like a window that he knew that I was just going into this whole sex slave program. He said to me, that was the best sex, yours was the best sex I ever had, which I thought was just, you know, it was a bit rude to his, you know, new girlfriend who he just hooked up with, you know. But now I realize what it really meant. It was like, okay, you didn't want me, you're not going to breed with me, this is what your life is going to be, right? So anyway, back to the animal print. So, you know, I was sort of stuck in this it's an invisible cage. What can I say? You know, and they keep you in there until menopause, and then they wake you up, and then they just mock you, and they send people in to mock you and for not having a baby. So that was an incredibly traumatic period of my life, because it's like, yeah, you wake up, and out of all of the girls, I was the most nurturing. I think even they'll agree with that I was the one that was most likely to have, 100 kids, because I love to nurture, and I never got that opportunity. And that's another reason why they've taken my mother away from me, right? They don't want me to be able to nurture. But back to Bob Holman, and so you could tell that the programming was still there. It hadn't been broken yet. And you can see it on the video, because I've just got this leopard print scarf just around my straw hat. It's just that little sign, it's just that. And, you can also, and he was able to, he knew all the trigger words. There's a file on me somewhere, and they know, and they watch you, and they're masters at this. And they know what they're doing. And yeah, so that's the last video you'll ever see of me with leopard print. And you can see it on the video that I captured of, kudos to me. I was being taken down, but I never let that camera away from my eye, and I got the whole thing, and I busted that fat yank, and like, he's so busted. Yeah, man. But he really hurt me. He did trigger me in public in the show. I can see it. They did rituals in the show that we did together, that actually, it's a combination of things. It's a combination of neuro-linguistic programming that they do. It's a combination of rituals that they do. It's also sort of the way that they mock you and stuff. And it's a combination of things. But it's so terrible to watch yourself on stage and to see yourself going into that. You can almost see on stage my legs opening, me going into this totally like a 4-year-old unself-conscious state, and just and also I could see the demonic. There is a demonic layering that they do in you when you're younger, and they bring it out in you, and I could see them bringing the demonic out of me, and I can tell you how it felt. It feels terrible. And not only did he do that, sort of on stage, and they're all there, they all know, and they all think they're so clever because they're in the know. They're just rapists. And then, of course, there was a street theatre that they set up outside the venue where there was a wedding. Well, of course, weddings are my trigger, because not only my family history, but like way back, that sort of, but because of my own marriage, which was in French, it was in Paris, it was a satanic marriage. I had two, I don't know who paid the secret police, the CIA, to pretend to be my girlfriends, to translate the wedding vows. So I don't even know what I agreed to, right? But I know after that marriage, I was just devastated inside, and I was never the same after that. And he programmed me during that marriage as well for 2 years. But so yeah, by creating the street theatre where they had bridesmaids wearing black and one in a butterfly dress. Well, of course, we know the Monarch butterfly is a symbol of the Monarch program. And then they were all holding Monarch cards with Monarch butterflies and make a wish on it, right? And I got all this on video. It's unbelievable. And then we come out of the venue and he goes, "Oh, look, a wedding." Well, we're not going that way, are we? We're going that way. But he knew it was all set up. And I'm like, "Oh, that's really strange, a wedding." And you can see me going into that space. You can, I think I was already in that space, but you can just see, you can almost see me drop into, I don't know whether it's alpha space. I don't know what it is. It's like, it's slave space. And you can see it. And I go, "Oh, let's have a look, because there's a confusion-based trauma. They're setting you up, so that creates a confusion-based trauma. And then, I cross the road and there's these bridesmaids, out the front, and this wedding in this like tiny little junk shop, you know, which is set up like a flower shop out the front. And the whole thing was a setup. And then, of course, they flashed the butterfly cards in my face. I wasn't supposed to capture that. Of course, that did trigger me and put me down to an even deeper level, which it was meant to do. They had the red car set up on the street. I can see all this on my video, videoing me, you know, so they video when they mock you and they do the street theatre. And so we do all this sort of street theatre, and I'm like, oh, wedding, and oh, you know, I look like such a dumb bimbo, you know, but I'm just like, they're so mean. They're so mean, you know. And then, of course, we leave that, and as we're walking up the street, Bob starts the nasty poetry about the bridesmaids wearing black and evil. And see, he used poetry as a way of punching you in the head, raping you. He used poetry in that way. So, and then, so not only did, you know, did when he was here for that 4 days, he set me up with the show, and then he set me up with the street theatre. But he also, I realize now, he raped me. He actually set up a gang rape. He let people into my flat. It was his last night. And I didn't realize, and it was funny because, and he must have put something in my drink. He must have drugged me, but he also, I had been injected, which I realized the next, like a couple of days later when I had a shower, because I still had the mark from the needle. And I'd said to these other two, they weren't girlfriends, they were perps too, they were part of it. And I'd said to them after, oh, it's really weird because I didn't have sex with Bob, but I feel like I've been fucked by a cricket bat. Isn't that weird? And they all looked at each other in horror because they knew exactly what had gone on, right? And because I was still a little bit maybe opiated from whatever I had been drugged with, and also I was tired because he kept me working really hard and I hadn't had much sleep, and I'd produced the show, I'd got everything together, and you know, it's well, you don't imagine that someone would do that, right? So you don't, but I realize now that's actually what had happened. He must have let, and that is actually a marker of these people, is, you know, the gang rape. You know, they like to sort of leave their mark. And I didn't, you know, also too, when something like that happened, because I remember when I was in the shower and I saw that in my arm, I thought, I sort of knew, but you know when something is so shocking that you can't actually bear to think of it at the time, especially if you don't have protection, especially if you don't have anywhere to run. Where could I have gone then? The police? Like, where could I have gone? You know, I couldn't have gone anywhere, you know, because I was sort of targeted from all sides. So wow, I really went off on a tangent there, but I didn't, because what I'm talking about is the sexual abuse and the way they, you know, they sort of rape you and then they call you a whore. And they use your need for love and romance and or your grief to sexually assault you. And these men are rapists and they're all in on it. I mean, they should just fuck each other because they don't like women. It's all about their little secret and whatever. You know, they're really creepy. And, you know, so I survived all of that. Like when he left, it was actually my father my darling father, who they won't let me see, my darling, lovely father, because I don't know what else he had done, but my brain, like I was, you know, if I've ever been close to, you know, just going completely crazy, it was after he left, because, you know, I'd been drugged, I'd been raped, I'd been mocked, I'd been, you know, an enormous amount of locals were in on it. And I think Bob thought, oh, Hillary was going to get in and he was going to be the big, you know, poetry boss of the New World Order in Australia, and he was going to look after the poets, and he was going to decide who spoke and who didn't. So he was coming thinking he was a real big shot. You know, he was preparing for this, right? And then, you know, after he left, my dad actually sent me to it was a Sacred Heart retreat, and it was a silence retreat at Douglas Park. And it was wonderful, actually, because they actually had like a walking prayer path, and my head was so scrambled or whatever, and just by praying and walking that path, that really helped me. Like, I really think I survived that because of that 3 days that my dad sent me to, you know, to do this prayer retreat, you know, to get my head together. And, you know, at the time too, I realized now my parents were also targeted. They were also being targeted as well. And one of the reasons why, and but here's the other thing about Bob. The last night he said to me, because I said to him, I was talking about Mum, and I said, wow, you know, since Mum got the Alzheimer's, I feel really close to her, and we just get on like a house on fire. Like, it's just amazing. We've got this amazing communication. And he said to me, that's because you've got the same thing as your mother. And I didn't understand that at the time, because I didn't really know what I had. You know what I mean? And I'd been to shrinks at the Dog Institute. They couldn't even work it out, right? You know, that nobody could work it out. And so, you know, I had to get a diagnosis because, well, now I know what was the matter with me. I did keep telling these shrinks and stuff, look, I'm being targeted, this is happening. I knew what was happening to me was situational. But of course, you know, psychologists, they're not there to, they're not like social workers. They're not there to say, yes, this is situational, and yes, your healing is in punching that prick in the head. You know, they go, oh, it must be about your mother, and it's all about, you know, oh, here, have a pill, let's feed the pharmaceutical company. I mean, they're such frauds. Bring back the social worker, you know what I mean? So, you know, I just never go to another one. They're just useless. Not unless I needed it for something formal. They're actually useless in terms of healing, as far as I'm concerned. So there's Bob saying, you've got the same thing as your mother. And I'm thinking, and I was still a bit, this is probably the night after the rape, or whatever, you know, I was like this when he left, right? And so because my head was so fuzzy, I couldn't work it out. Like, and I'm still in that slave mode, right? So you don't ask questions. I mean, me now, I go, what do you mean? You know? But then it's like, oh, you know? And now I know what he means, actually. He means that I come from a Monarch Program family, that it's multi-generational. And maybe the next one I can talk to you about that, because that's very bloody interesting, what I found out about my, you know, my family history, actually through my sister who did the research on it. But at the time, I didn't know anything. And you see, that's another reason why they want her in there. They want to do experimentation on her. They want to get her genetic stuff. They probably want to do a satanic ritual and pull her heart out and whatever. Who would know, right? Because they got in the will that she'll be cremated. So they can do anything to her at the end of her life. You know, she got to get out of there. But what is sort of creepy is that, and I don't even know whether my brother, I think my brother's a weaponized moron, because if he knew what he was doing, he couldn't live with himself. You're not that smart. I feel sorry for him. When he actually realizes what he's done to my parents, oh my God, like, but not only did he withhold money from Mum and wouldn't give me any money to care for Mum, but he insisted on buying the pajamas. And, you know, Mum's in a ward with like demented masturbators. And I put the pajamas. Mum's in a, I put with those pajamas. I had just here. Mum's in the ward with demented masturbators, right? And isn't that weird? I just had it in my hand. Oh, there. And what pajamas does he get, Mum? Oh my God. Oh my God. Just so the demented masturbators can follow her up the corridor, right? Bloody hell. And as soon as I saw this, because by this stage I knew what this was, I'm like, you're not wearing them. You know, I took them home. Yes, you can stay in the striped, you know, we go striped pajamas, jail pajamas, striped, you know, nothing pretty. And these rape pajamas, okay? If you're a demented, you know, and you see a woman in this, it's just that she might as well be in a G-string and a, you know, a boa, like, honestly. So, the horror is endless in that place. It's endless. It's multi-layered. I know my mother has been physically abused. I also think she's been sexually abused. When my friend Amy went to see her on her birthday, 10th of December, Mum was saying to her, oh, should I? She was a bit drugged. I could see that she was a bit drugged. And she was sort of having a girl-to-girl talk with my friend. And she said, do you think I should give it to him? Now, if you knew my mother, like, so she's so cornered in them, and she knows, yeah, do you think I should give it to him? Like, I'm terrified. I can only, and I do imagine. I tell you what, I stay awake of a night imagining what's happening to her, what they're doing to her, what they've done to her, what she's experienced. You know, my mother at 86. And, you know, during our last one, when you brought up the elder porn thing, like, it's not out of the question. It's not out of the question. I want my mother at home, okay? And also, too, because of my sexual abuse, because of what has happened to me, you know, I have the right to nurture my mother in the safety of her own home. It's what we arranged. So it's not just what's happening to my mother. They're torturing us both at the same time. And they know it. I'm sorry, but they know it. You know, when they, you know, what's this? What's this? This is just torture. And then I have to go by their visitor's code of conduct. We don't want to have anything to do with your internment camp, okay? I don't know how to get her out of there. I've sort of been trying everything, but I really do feel like what's holding her in there is totally military industrial. And you know, I mean, I'm still trying things in the system. There is a police investigation now. I sort of have my hope. I sort of have my hope on the boys in blue. I want them to win. I want them to free Gwenny, you know. I want them, you know, they're taking forever with this investigation. And when my advocate went to see them, you know, they said to him, I mean, they're not going to tell him anything anyway, because they know he'd tell me to end up on YouTube. But they sort of said to him, you know, we don't have resources that many, and they don't. And this is the problem. The police should be given the same resources as the Black Ops. I mean, the Black Ops have got trillions, right? The invisible police force has trillions of dollars to play with. Well, how about, you know, the men in blue who are protecting our borders And we don't need protection from the Muslims or the terrorists. We need protection from these creeps, from these rapists, from these pedophiles, from these elder abusers, from these Satanists, from these people that want us to forget our history and our culture and who we are and what our values are. You know, they don't want us to be a Christian culture and go by those values anymore. You know, they don't want good, solid Christian marriages like my parents. And they had a solid marriage, man, to last to the end. They want to bring in their New World Order idea of marriage and family and whatever. And they want to get rid of people like me. And they want to get rid of people like my parents as well, you know. It's like if you're not with the program, and you know, it's a funny thing. It's like, I don't know, I've been thinking about it. It must be something that you're just born that way, that you're just not with the program. You know what I mean? Because it's not like I didn't try to be part of society. It's not like I didn't try to like fit in and contribute, and they didn't want my contribution. Every time I contributed, it would be pulled out from under me, sabotaged, mocked, ridiculed. You know, it would always end up with some sort of humiliation, devastation, rape, you know. And so I'm sort of, I'm really tired because it's gone on for so long, and I've worked so hard, but Mum's still in there and they're still writing me these. So they obviously feel like they've got a lot of power behind them and they can do what they want, and I can I can go to all these government departments and ask for investigations, but they know everyone. I don't know. Do they know that everyone's in on it, so nothing's going to change anyway? Like, I don't know. Like, I mean, I suppose in a way, my hope at the moment is it is with the police. I hope they come through for Mum. I want them to, you know what I mean? I want them to like be the heroes, and maybe Malcolm Turnbull, like maybe if I ask him, but like after that, I don't know. I'm running out of ideas, and I'm tired, and you know, I'm not sleeping with this. Like, I can't sleep because I know what it's like for Mum in there. You know, I've spent the long hours with her in there. It's just hell. The noises, the smells, the danger, no boundaries, no safety, no connection. And why? Why? She has a family, you know. I'm a great carer, you know. I've got a lot of skills. I gave her a lot of things that made her happy, but they don't want her to be happy. So, I don't know. I'm sort of tired, and I don't feel like telling the truth about everything because we're just probably going to die anyway. So just tell everything, and just so at least they don't get away with it when we're gone. You know what I mean? Oh, which one do I read out? Which one? Oh, you know, I wanted to. It's so funny because I feel so emotional, but I wanted to talk about other things, but I feel emotional now. I don't feel like I can talk about it in this one, but I'll talk about it in the next one. But I just want to say thank you, you know, because you give me a lot of strength, and you know, because I know what you're going through, and then you get up and you're really great. But I'm sort of tired tonight because I just feel like I lose every round. You know, I work really hard and I lose every round. And I haven't really won a round yet. And I want to win for Mum. You know, I want to get her out of there. But I'm tired.